You're listening to a Hope 1032 podcast.
Hey, welcome to Raising Teens, the podcast for you and your family. Whatever is going on in your household with your adolescents, we can help you out with psychologist and teacher Collett Smart. I'm Ben McEachern here with Collett. Collett, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good to be back.
Collett, we are going to dive straight into a question from a listener, Marco. And his question is, my teen has been nagging for a pet for a long time. I feel as though I'm going to be the one that ends up feeding and cleaning up after it. So, Collett, what are your thoughts on teens and pets?
Well, let me just start with some statistics and then I will go into a personal story about pets in my home. So fascinating statistics show that Australia has one of the highest rates of pet ownership in the world. Can you believe that after the US and New Zealand, and I think the US probably because of the amount of people, but we're actually after New Zealand. So that was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, hang on a minute. But anyway, go back to the bit. We're third highest in the world when it comes to pet ownership.
Yeah, and so...
That's all kinds of pets, like from goldfish to giraffe.
It must be. Yeah, the giraffe. But
Maybe
anyhow,
not.
Maybe not that. Maybe if you work at Taronga Zoo or if you're Bindi Irwin. But with over 2/3 of households owning pets in Australia.
That is a lot.
Yes. And so really quite simply, pets are just part of Australians' way of life. Dogs, of course, are the highest owned pets. And
Of course,
then cats.
I'm a bit of a dog fan. Cats.
Look, I'm more of a cat person.
Are you?
I am.
Well, we'll have to take this offline later. We'll
Yes.
deal with that later, Collett. Let's get back to the subject of teens and animals. But you're a cat lover. I can appreciate that.
Well, what's fascinating is if you'd asked me a decade ago or so, I probably would have said I'm a non-pet lover at all.
Oh, you're agnostic about
Yes.
animals.
So part of my story is that I have a young adult daughter. She's studying animal sciences at university. And she's fascinating. She's one of those rare human beings who knew what she wanted to do from about 3 years old. Well, I
Whoa.
realized that
Yeah.
from 3. Her love for animals.
And she's stuck with it.
And she has. And she's one of those people who have said she's wanted to work with animals her whole life and she's never veered off of that, and that's what she's doing. And she taught me about this human-animal relationship that I never got. I never understood people who were jumping over fences to go and pat dogs who were, strangers' animals. I thought it was a bit weird until I ended up with this child who did this, who, veered off at every opportunity to pat and love and care for animals. She was breeding budgies at the age of 10. It was fascinating because her aviary was her happy place in the morning before school. It wasn't a chore for her. We
Like
have
a mini zoo at your place.
We absolutely have a mini zoo. We have 2 dogs, 2 cats, a bunny, which she calls her therapy bunny because she got during year 11 to just be kind of a companion during exam stress time and so on. She hand-reared a budgie that was rejected by its mother that still sits on her shoulder in her room. We've had hermit crabs. We've had chickens. So, yep, we've had a zoo.
So have your own insights changed into animals and teens as a result of watching your daughter and the effects on you?
Absolutely. So now that we actually have cats, I've actually discovered I am more of a cat person and I enjoy being around the cat more than the dog. My husband's actually more of the dog person. But
Good thing you've got so many.
yeah, exactly. But I think what's fascinating to me is watching some of the research playing itself out in my home. And, well, the physical benefits, some of them you can't see, but it's interesting to see that the physical benefits show increased cardiovascular health. So we see people with lowered blood pressure, lowered cholesterol when they've done studies on pet owners, fewer visits to the doctor. Growing up with a dog and other pets to a lesser extent, even from infancy onwards, seems to perhaps help strengthen immune systems and reduce the risk of allergies.
Is that because you're more active but also around more dog hair and stuff?
I wonder, because my children do not have allergies to cat hair or anything where although I'm more of a cat lover, I tend to have more of an allergy to cats.
Oh, that's
My
awkward.
husband grew up with cats and he doesn't have an allergy. So anecdotally, that's showing itself in my house. Children who have pets are less likely to miss days off of school due to illness, interestingly. And then, of course, increased physical activity. So your kids are getting out, walking the dog, playing with the animals in the garden and so on.
Not so much the goldfish.
Yeah, perhaps not,
No.
unless you walk round and round the bowl. But yeah, I'm not sure. Perhaps when you walk out and have to clean the fish tank, maybe. Psychological benefits show that owning a pet also increases responsibility. And there's this routine that comes into play and this purpose built into your day. We see some of our young people who struggle with depression and anxiety being able to pull themselves out of their bedrooms at certain times because they know the dog needs a walk, or they're cleaning their guinea pig's cage, playing with a cat, doing things outside of their bedrooms where they've confined themselves, and it's healthy. So they get outside of themselves.
So it's good for responsibility, because part of Marco's question was his own fear that he as the dad is going to be the one that has to do all the feeding and the cleaning and the walking and that kind of thing. But you're saying this is actually a good thing for responsibility being taken by teens.
Yes. Parents will often find that they end up doing a whole lot of the stuff. I'm not going to sugarcoat that or pretend that everyone has an animal-loving daughter like my daughter in their home. But I also have two sons who often had to or have to be reminded to feed the dog or do part of what's on their chore list. But I do think that the benefits outweigh some of the painful aspects of picking up some of the slack as a parent. We also see that pets can be good companions. They help young people make contact with other people. They have something familiar or something to talk about with their friends. We even see young people developing more empathy or showing that they have empathic skills.
They can look outside themselves.
Yes. And we've seen adolescents who are showing higher self-esteem when they own pets, because suddenly they have something to do outside of themselves. They've got a duty, something to care for outside of themselves. And then we see teenagers who own pets have a more positive outlook on life. They report less loneliness, less restlessness, less despair, and less boredom, I suppose, because they're also out getting outside, doing something on the lawn or walking around and having something different to do in their lives. And then, of course, we see young people being able to cope with grief and stress and loss better than non-pet owners. And so that's fascinating to me when we see our young people having to deal with the death of a pet. It can be a real struggle for them, but I don't think it's something we should shy away from as parents.
You mean like it's a kind of a softer way into dealing with grief than, say, when a human loved one dies?
So, Ben, that's something I would have thought years ago, being a non-animal lover. But until I had my daughter, who showed me this intense relationship that humans and animals can have. And I think pet lovers would say, and animals lovers would say, it's not softer, it's not less intense.
Okay.
But I think it's a very valuable lesson, perhaps in a loving, caring environment at home where we can help our children learn about grief for the first time. It's a very valuable, life-giving time, despite the fact that they're going through grief. It's something they learn about life in an amazing, incredible way. And then I think I should just finally do a shout out to parents and teachers and schools who are working with therapy animals. We're seeing companion dogs for kids on the autism spectrum. We're seeing schools introducing llamas. Interestingly, llamas are part of the therapy animal category. And then, of course, dogs and horses as therapy animals. There's just an incredible bond that we see with young people on the spectrum, that they actually have more with animals than humans sometimes. So there's just amazing benefits to having animals introduced into our homes. And this is coming from someone who was never an animal person a few decades ago.
So that is a big tick yes to Marco's question of should my teen get an animal? Yes, Marco, they should. Thanks so much for your question. And you might have a question or a comment or a concern going on right now that you want to put to Collett. The easy way to do that is to find the Raising Teens
Hope 103.2. Thanks for listening.